me well?
I can hear you great.
No, Ruth, it's a pleasure to have you. I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while. I think you've probably sort of stopped posting a little bit now, but I used to follow you very well when you were at ADA before. So really excited to have you here. I just want to get a quick introduction from you about your journey and also about LivePerson before we sort of kickstart things.
Sure. Yeah, I am a marketer. I've been working in primarily B2B SaaS, enterprise SaaS marketing for, gosh, I guess it's been a decade or more. The journey was somewhat unexpected. I didn't start out in tech. I spent a decade in not-for-profit, but have been doing marketing for most of my career, which spans now many decades. I've been at LivePerson for just almost 6 months. And LivePerson is a software company, also enterprise SaaS. We're a publicly traded company, and we sell an AI platform. So we help large enterprise to unlock the power of AI. And I head up the marketing function there.
Got it, Ruth. You know, it's funny. These days, if any pitch deck has an AI in its deck, VCs are pouring capital into it. So it's an exciting sort of, I think, company to be in.
Very much so. I used to say even like a few years ago, AI kind of felt like white noise.
Right.
But in the last few months, all of a sudden, the world seems to understand what it means. And it is indeed a very exciting time.
Awesome. Ruth, I actually wanted to get your sort of one-on-one about LLMs. I think LLMs seem like the recent innovation that happened in AI right now. If you can sort of give us a quick sort of your sense of why is it a breakthrough and what LLMs mean, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, well, this isn't new technology. Brands have been working with LLMs for a while now. And in fact, if I can give a plug, this Thursday, LivePerson is hosting a webinar about generative AI and LLMs. You can check that out on our website. But I think what's happened with the launch of ChatGPT in particular is that the world, from my 18-year-old son to my 75-year-old mother, suddenly the hearts and minds of the average person have been opened up to the possibility of AI. And it's really these large language models that have, facilitated that unlock. And AI is now been shown to be able to talk to anybody in a way that feels a lot more natural than what we've been accustomed to in the past. So I think that was the unlock, that suddenly everyone had access to this, and it actually did things, it generated things in a way that was very delightful.
100%. But also, one thing that I've been sort of reading about it a lot, and the basics of what I understand is that it looks like these LLMs have consumed a lot of information on the internet and are able to predict things when you actually give a prompt, because they have studied so much information. They can actually say that, hey, here is what the answer could potentially look like from all the aspects of things.
That's right.
And one thing I'm curious to understand is there is definitely applications of generative AI in sales and marketing side of things, right? And just curious, how do you think about that sort of helping sales and marketing teams, if I may ask?
Yeah, I keep, I've been having this conversation a lot with my own teams internally, with colleagues in the field. And I think there's a little bit of like, we don't know what we don't know. Right. I think we're going to swiftly start to understand the possibilities more practically. But some of the ways in which, I've been riffing like with my colleagues and with my teams about how we might apply this technology. I mean, I think that it accelerates our ability to bring content to market, whereas before you're starting with a blank page. Now you don't really have to start with a blank page, whether that's, an SDR outreach or a blog post or even a white paper or a campaign. You don't have to start from scratch. You can really feed the parameters to the system, and you'll get an output, a generated output that's a reasonable starting point. Now, is that good enough to put out there in the market without the human touch? I don't personally think so.
Right.
So I'm a writer by trade, and I don't believe that my skill set is going to be completely eliminated. I hope. I think there's still a place for really skilled writers, and I think the market or the public is still going to crave really, really authentic content. But you're going to be able to achieve that so much faster. So I think, and I think the same is true, by the way, when it comes to visual marketing, graphics or videos or images. You can generate those things now. You're not starting from nothing. So.
Correct. That's so true. At least to me, I'm not a writer by profession, and I've always admired that skill even now, because it helps in so many ways, right? I've used ChatGPT once in a while to get some initial ideas, but my content lead keeps saying that, hey, we as a brand have a particular tone and language in which we write, and that's how we present ourselves to the market, and we need to make sure that that is not affected by all these.
Well, eventually you'll be able to train those models on that tone and that brand identity, and you'll be able to refine the models to those specific parameters. But you're spot on. Today, out of the box, that doesn't exist. You would have to create that framework, that brand identity, to inform the tone. But you can you can instruct based on a tone of voice. But you need to, I think that you have to have clarity on what that tone is for your brand, how it's going to get reflected conversationally and in your content. But that will happen. That will evolve.
No, that makes sense, Ruth. And I want to shift gears a little bit. And since you have had a lot of experience in the enterprise marketing a little bit, right? One thing I would say, a lot of startups in general start with like SMB and mid market, because that's like the early adopter curve of sorts. And when moving to enterprises, obviously feels like a completely different motion, because of the different stakeholders involved. The sales cycle is so long, and there are different journeys in which you have to take the buyers through. Curious to hear your thoughts on how have you typically gotten in front of enterprises in the first place, right? Like, obviously we can talk about the sales motion, but how do you actually create like the awareness to actually get inbound from enterprises? Like, would just like love to hear your thoughts and tactics on what has helped so far.
I think it's a misconception that it's harder to break into enterprise. I actually, my personal preference is to do marketing even at the startup level. And I've worked for, very small startups and then more mature startups. I think that, anchoring on an enterprise motion right out of the gate is healthy and achievable. Now, your definition of enterprise may change. Enterprise may be in your earlier days a small deal inside of a business unit of a large enterprise, and that might evolve. But I think, it starts with a really targeted list. So understanding whether it's from an industry perspective or a size perspective or a geography perspective, where do you best fit? Where do you best have product market fit? Where do you have real clarity on the problem that you're solving for that slice of the market? And then putting together a generous list of contacts inside of those accounts. So we always start with our list, and I know we were going to talk today about account-based marketing. Maybe this is a good segue. Account-based marketing is only as good as the list that you start with. And the more targeted your list, the greater the likelihood that you're going to be successful in those efforts. So I would rather have a healthy list of 100 target accounts with the right contacts mapped to those accounts and a clear understanding of the pain that we solve for those types of accounts than a spray and pray approach that covers, tens of thousands of accounts.
That makes sense, Ruth. And once you've identified accounts, let's say that LG is an account that LivePerson wants to go after, right? What happens after that? Is it a combination of digital plus events plus outbound? Is that the typical journey?
That's exactly right. We would start to run what I would call campaigns against those accounts. Now, a campaign is not just, AdWords or emails. A campaign is, this is, I think, my definition. I don't think I stole it from anyone. If I did, somebody call me out and happy to give credit. Right. But I define a campaign as a multi-touch, multi-channel, multi-asset, time-boxed initiative that is pointed at a specific slice of the market and with a pipeline and revenue target in mind. So let's say, we were targeting financial services. We'd identify what are the top 20 accounts inside of financial services that we want to target. And then we would run events and ads and targeted email and BDR outreach. And maybe we'd run a webinar. We'd create an asset or two. We'd have PR. So I try to get into publications that those accounts might be interested in. All of those activities. And I would assign a pipeline target against that and push go and run that over usually I would say a 2-quarter time horizon at a minimum.
I see. And then within those 2 quarters, you evaluate how much is the pipeline, what is the pipeline per spend, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. What is the how many MQLs do I need? At what rate are those converting to pipeline? And then how would I expect those to, convert to closed won deals?
That's great, Ruth. And also, I think when you're prepping for this call, you really explained well about how you guys actually expand an account once you land a business deal, right? For example, the land opportunity could be a small account, could be a small ACV of sorts, and then you guys expand from there through a series of things. Is it different from how you guys land the motion, or how does that work?
A lot of it is product specific. What is your offering? But but a land and expand motion is pretty common inside of large enterprise. So how do you get that initial foothold? Prove out your value inside a specific business unit, and then you can expand on the basis of adoption or usage. So is there more of your product that you can sell to the same business unit inside of that brand? Can you grow their usage, the volume of usage of that product? Can you expand the suite of features that they're leveraging? But then you can also expand horizontally into other business units inside of that account. And sometimes that's easier to do once you have that foothold because you have the referenceability and credibility of the business unit where you've already landed. So there are a few different expansion levers once you've landed inside of that account.
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned, Ruth, is that you guys do, a series of activities very targeted across these departments, be it sending gifts, right? Be it having a very targeted event, right, to actually bring these folks together. Any best practices, especially on the event side? Like if you have to bring folks together, how do you sort of get them together? Is it like a workshop format? What's your sort of...
Yeah, I mean, events have, in the last 5 years really changed.
Right.
I think of 3 different types of events. Well, let's call it 4. There are remote events like webinars. So that's one bucket. Then there are small, more intimate in-person events.
Yeah.
Then there are larger sort of user conference type events that are hosted by the vendor. And then there are trade shows. Those would be the 4 buckets.
Correct.
And I think a solid event strategy should ideally have some element of each of those 4 as part of its strategy. But I think that, a lot of that depends on the size of your company and what your pipeline targets are, where you operate, what your budget is. Of those 4 buckets, different investments can yield different results. But I usually have a good mix of all 4 as part of my marketing strategy. Certainly that's the case at LivePerson.
There's one question, and I don't know if you can answer this question, but how are you looking at events at your company this year? Any sort of high-level things you can share, Ruth, in terms of how you're splitting those 4 buckets?
Yeah, I guess I would say 2 things. And this is not only LivePerson specific. I think around the world, vendors recognize that customer retention, customer expansion matters more than ever before. And so we are looking at how we can create very intimate, sort of bespoke events for our customers. How can we really make them feel special? How can we do events that serve their needs and interests in a really personalized way? So that's one event priority for us in the coming year. And then we're really looking at how we verticalize our trade show strategy. So there are certain industries where, what we sell is really very resonant, and there are trade shows that are associated with those industries. So how do we make sure that we have a good, healthy investment in those trade shows and those industries in particular? And that's been how I've prioritized marketing historically. I think I have a preference for those smaller, more intimate events because I really believe that marketing and sales is ultimately about building relationships, and there's a much better opportunity to do that when you're in a smaller, more intimate group.
No, for sure. At least, I love field events because the ROI on field events is so high, because at most you'll spend probably like $200 per person on an experience, and then the potential is so massive. The one thing, Ruth, and maybe I'm a little biased because we are a digital events product company, right? One thing I'm a little biased towards is trade shows, actually, and I've never been able to be so successful with at least our team's efforts in trade shows. Like the leads have not been working out well. Probably we have not spent a lot of time preparing for the trade show, etc., etc. At least in my mind, I feel like the only meaningful ones are like the biggest ones where you can actually go and meet some customers and set up some meetings. The smaller ones, at least for us, have not performed well. So we'd just like love to hear your thoughts on how you think about the trade show spend, and also how do you sort of get the best buck out of it.
I think you're spot on. Listen, you go to these trade shows and people are being pulled in every possible direction, and they walk through the exhibition floor and they're distracted.
Right.
And, it's very hard to have a meaningful interaction with the prospect.
Right.
I think I see trade shows as more of a brand investment. So how are you elevating brand awareness at this trade show? So to your point, I would way rather do fewer trade shows, but make a big splash, be the top line sponsor, be on stage, have a massive booth, make sure that you are the top of mind brand, that you're being remembered, because I see it as largely as a brand investment.
Right.
And then the other thing I would say is make sure that you're really discriminating about which events you decide to sponsor. So I've always operated with like an evaluation framework. What percentage of the audience is inside of your target market? How many of your competitors are going to be there, if any? Are any of your customers going to be there? What are you going to get for your sponsorship? Like how much is this actually going to cost? So there's a whole are any of your partners going to be there? So there's a whole evaluation framework that you should put every trade show through, so that you can have confidence that you're making a smart investment and that this lines up to your priorities.
No, that makes sense. And we were thinking, hey, look, let's not do these booths. Let's actually host events around these bigger conferences. And seems like this year everybody's doing that. Like they're all doing parties around conference. I'm like, oh shit.
There's a lot of competition on the events front when you decide to go to these conferences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you guys historically, even at Ada and LivePerson, have you been doing these large user conferences, Ruth, or is it you want to have these smaller, intimate events as like the key?
So I've always done those in my career, wherever I've been, at least one a year. I think it's an important way to build a community. It's really about building community amongst your customers. I see those as more customer facing, with some smaller percentage of prospects that participate. At LivePerson, we actually have a really wonderful track record of doing those types of events, and we will certainly continue to do them. But I think this year we're planning to do a really big global event later in the year for all of our customers, and do, like I said, more of these sort of smaller, bespoke, more intimate, in-person gatherings that with an industry focus.
That's awesome. Any recent bespoke event that you attended and had a fantastic experience that comes to your mind? Any sort of thoughts on why?
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug my marketing team again. I posted this on LinkedIn today. We were in New York City last week. We did a wonderful event for financial services customers and prospects, large enterprise. We had about 30 people, executives in the room. We talked about generative AI and LLMs and how they should be thinking about it, the risks and opportunities. We had a great demo, I believe, was shared. And then we also had, it was like we had a Michelin star chef there doing a cooking presentation. And so there, I think everybody there really enjoyed great food and drinks and some fun and some very spirited conversation. We're doing the same event again this evening in Chicago, very similar event tonight in Chicago. So that's the model I think that we're going to be doing more of in the coming months.
That's great, Ruth. Our events person recently wanted to do a Michelin star chef and create something. I think at our stage, probably we thought, hey, probably let's sort of scale down a little bit. But I think it's a great idea. I would have definitely gone there if there was a Michelin star chef coming in.
People want a special experience. They want to not just be lectured at. I think they want a chance to talk to their peers and learn from other people and also have a little bit of fun. We had a lot of years of not being able to get out there and interact with other people. And so I think folks are craving that.
That's good. And Ruth, these 30 folks you guys invited, was it because I remember seeing in our community, somebody asked this question. It's so tough to actually ask salespeople to invite their prospects. They're not doing their work. We actually have sequences and outreach, stuff like that. How do you actually get those folks to the event? Is it a combination of sales and marketing? Outreach?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful team, and extra lucky because I have great partnership with the sales organization at LivePerson. We worked in lockstep, arm in arm with our sales partners, like I said, targeting the right accounts. So we used very targeted lists, and we do very authentic outreach. So there's no secret formula. I think it's about authenticity and persistence and making the prospect feel confident that we're inviting them to something special, which we were.
Are these events, this is something I was thinking about actually. We are doing a series of events in March across different cities, very intimate dinners, like these kinds of things. We obviously want to focus on prospects already in the pipeline, right? So that we can meet them. But I really want to open it up for more people as well, even if they're not in the pipeline. Even for top funnel leads, let's just use this as an experience to get to know them. Would you recommend that, or is that something that you guys?
So we do that, certainly. But again, we're very discriminating and surgical about which accounts we prioritize. So if we take this event in New York, this was a financial services event. So it was restricted to our, top 200 financial services accounts that we were prospecting. Opportunities already in pipeline were prioritized. Our top 100 customers were prioritized. And then we had a short list as well of target accounts that were, brands that we really wanted to do business with, that we knew would be great to have in the room. That I think it's actually exciting to get cold prospects into a room with some of your existing customers, as well as, brands that you've already been talking to. There's a lot of learning and energy that can come from that.
Totally true. I remember last time we had an event, we opened it up a little bit, and then randomly folks from Twilio came to the event. I was like, oh wow, that's exciting, right? To have some brands that you actually looked up to and they kind of come to your events. Like, oh, let's do it. Right? So there is one question.
Did you target C-level? I see as a question.
Yes, I think that's one. Where is that? Oh yeah. Did you target C-level in these? That's a good question.
So I have mixed feelings about C-level targeting. As a C-level executive myself, I think it's important to have, buy-in and sponsorship from the C-suite. If I think about it in my own world, if my VP of growth is going to be making a material investment in a software that isn't at least on my radar, then that purchase is probably at risk. So whoever is selling that software to my VP of growth at some point may want to loop me in.
Right.
But I shouldn't be the number one target. I'm not going to make that decision for him. I might recommend something if it comes on my radar, but I am largely going to defer to my direct reports to scope out software that they need to use to get their job done.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, I don't know if this person was asking specifically, Daniela, about the event. I do believe we had some C-suite executives in the room. We definitely tried to keep it a very senior level audience. But I think that when it comes to marketing and prospecting in general, you need both a top-down and a bit of a bottoms-up approach, or it's not going to be effective.
That makes a lot of sense, Ruth. And there is one more question again to this event. Does your team manage this on your own, or do you have services that gets you the celebrity chefs?
So we do it both ways. We actually, in this case, and anybody who's interested, happy to introduce you to the folks on the marketing team. We did use a third-party vendor to coordinate the chef. I, off the top of my head, don't remember who we used. But we've also done these events independently with a lot of success. I don't think you need to use a third-party vendor necessarily. So you don't have to have massive budget to execute effectively. Right. Now, if you're going to have somebody cooking, you should probably hire a professional chef. But, you know, I've done these in a lot of different ways with a lot of different attractions, and you can do them quite lightweight. I would say, though, that it's really, it's the venue matters. So if you're just bringing folks together to a restaurant, for instance, and we did this recently at LivePerson a few months back in New York City as well. We've done them in London. The venue matters. And so it's great to choose like a really trendy, hot restaurant that can be a big draw. Like I said, people want to come out not just to hear you. They certainly don't want to come out to hear you speak about your software. They want to come out to have a great meal, a great experience, to meet their peers and learn from them. And then also maybe hear some thought leadership perspective about how the market is changing. I think those things are usually the key drivers.
But also, I think it's definitely true. I personally underestimated the importance of venue in these kinds of events, right? I was reading this book called Behind the Cloud that Mark Benioff wrote, and he has an entire chapter on events, and the first page says about how event locations are so important to bring people together. Totally. The whole aroma, the whole ambience.
Totally. 100%. One thing that I've also done is, offering Uber codes to your guests to help them get there and get home. It's like a small and not too expensive investment to make people feel a little extra special and to make it as easy as possible for them to participate.
That's definitely true. I agree with that. This is one question that is a great question I would love to have. Shruti is asking this question. What is the hook for the C-suite to attend?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify one thing, because I wouldn't recommend, if you're doing a small intimate dinner, that you have C-suite participants along with managers. I think I'm thinking more holistically about the prospecting, how you prospect into an enterprise account. You want both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. But I would recommend for these smaller intimate events that if you're inviting C-suite, that you keep the targeted list to VP and above. And the hook is always, I think the most meaningful hook is the opportunity to meet your peers and to talk to them and learn from them. So having one or two or three other C-suite representatives, either from your customer base or from opportunities in pipeline, to speak to some of the topics that you wanted to address at the meeting. That's a great opportunity. But it's really, if I was going to go to an event as a CMO, it would be to learn from other CMOs. I would want to hear about their best practices. What are some of the things they're struggling with? How have they solved certain problems? So I think that is the ultimate hook.
That makes a lot of sense. And Ruth, I don't know if you can share this number, but in your mind or in your team's budget, what's the rough split between like the owned events spend versus like third-party event spend? Is it like 70-30 roughly, or like 30-70?
Are you drawing when you say owned versus third-party, you mean like events that you're hosting as the brand versus trade shows?
Exactly.
I think it depends on, the stage that you're at, the market that you target, what it is that you sell. I would say somewhere between 60-40, 60 being owned, 40 being third party, and 70-30.
Makes sense. That's a good benchmark I think folks would love to have. Let me take this question from Frank. With all the rapid advancements in AI, there is a ton of excitement, but also a bit of unknown because it's so new and such a huge leap forward. How does your team build trust with your customers and clients?
Yeah, trust is a hot topic right now, especially when it comes to AI. And I think that every brand that adopts an AI strategy needs to be considerate of the risks and challenges around trust, around compliance, around privacy. I don't think there is a simple answer here, but there are some great resources that are out there about how you can be considerate of these risks and opportunities. In fact, LivePerson, the CEO at LivePerson, had the foresight 4 years ago to found a nonprofit organization called Equal AI. And Equal AI is working with the top levels of government, the Biden administration, their advisors to the Biden administration on how to build policy and practice around responsible AI. And they have a certification program in place. The folks at LivePerson, the executives that are working most directly with our AI have been certified on this program. But even as a starter, there's a great checklist on their website, which we have on our LivePerson website as well. Just go to our AI hub, and there's great information there about some of the best practices that you can put in place today to make sure that you are behaving more responsibly when it comes to AI. Because it is a bit of a loose cannon today. And I think especially larger enterprise, they're accountable to these things.
Right.
You can't just indiscriminately use people's data or respond to questions. There are some serious and important variables that you need to have in mind as you build your strategy. So I would encourage everyone to go check out Equal AI, read up more on the LivePerson website as well.
That's fantastic.
And just again, I'll plug again. This is the very topic we cover a lot of ground on trust in the webinar that I mentioned on Thursday. I don't know if this will air before that, but we will have the webinar available on demand even after it's this is live now, right? We're
yes,
live. Okay,
yeah.
cool. I've done so many of these lately. I'm confused. So yeah, Thursday you can still register, and we are covering the topic of privacy and risk around AI. And we have the co-founder of Equal AI joining on that webinar. So that's another good resource.
Oh, I think my team just shared the link.
Awesome. I'm so sorry for the confusion. I got confused there for a minute.
No, you're good. And there is one more question from Shruti. Ruth, this is also an important, would love to hear your thoughts on key success factors to host ABM event strategy for enterprises versus SMB. Is it easier to onboard C-suite of SM mid-market versus SMB versus mid-market companies? But I think, yeah.
I would never encourage an account-based marketing strategy for SMB. A true account-based marketing is a very expensive proposition. An SMB strategy has to be a volume-based, low-touch strategy. And I think, the most successful SMB models today are ones that are really facilitated by true product-led growth, a free trial experience, for instance. So I would not recommend an account-based marketing strategy around SMB. I think in that case, you're really going for more of a volume play to make it worth your while. I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to chime in with a follow-up.
Yeah. I know I usually actually ask this question towards the end, but somebody asks, are your books color coordinated?
That is so funny that you asked that, Ryan. I get asked, so my daughter did this for me at the start of the pandemic, and she did it because we all went to Zoom. Everything was happening remotely, and people were using these Zoom backgrounds, and I don't know. And I don't mean this as a judgment of anyone who uses the Zoom backgrounds, but I found them to be very inauthentic. And I thought, where is there an opportunity to initiate a conversation about me, about my life, about my home when you're on a Zoom? And this was my idea, which my daughter brought to life very beautifully. And it is a conversation starter so often. So they are color coordinated. But if you look at this one, not so much.
Awesome. But I want to sort of pick one question about your background. I think we discussed about how you came from a writing background, right? I think you have a major in writing, if I'm correct. Right?
English, yes.
English literature, yes. And then and then you mentioned about how, hey, there is there is no conventional path to becoming a CMO, right? Because people think that, hey, you have to become like, demand gen manager, head of demand gen, and then become a CMO. But would love to hear your thoughts on that. But also the second question is, how can someone improve their writing and communication skills?
Okay, so two-part question. Let's tackle the first part
Yes.
first, which is, how do you kind of grow your career and aspire to a CMO spot? And I didn't follow what I think would be considered a conventional path necessarily. And, it's not like medicine or engineering where you go to school and you study that topic and then you go out and you get a job in your field. I don't have a degree in marketing. I don't even have an MBA. In fact, I did my master's of social work with an undergraduate degree in English. And I mentioned I spent about a decade in the nonprofit world doing marketing and fundraising. I think for me, what worked was knowing my superpower. And I do think that writing is my superpower. I'm a pretty strong writer. I was always told that I was a good writer. And I leaned into that to build credibility and, get a job and represent my skills. But then I maintained a real curiosity about all other things related to marketing, things I knew nothing about. I was very hungry to learn more. So product marketing and brand and, the BDR function, tech in general was something that was very unfamiliar to me. And I think that always being curious to take on more is what's going to help you to grow your breadth of responsibility. But the way that you actually move in seniority is by then hiring people, once you get a mandate to be a people manager, hiring people who are better than you in that specific domain. So I'm, credible enough to be dangerous inside of, let's say, SEO, but I'm not an SEO expert.
Right.
I have SEO experts on my team. Same thing with BDR. I'm very credible. I understand how it works. I know how to go into outreach and do the analysis. I can write a great SDR sequence, but I'm not the expert on my team. I need to hire an expert on my team. And as you grow in your mandate of responsibility, you always want to be hiring people that are better than you so that you can step up and back from the front line. The longer that you find yourself on the front line, the lesser the likelihood that you're going to be promoted into a more senior role. So that's sort of how I always, thought about my career, is be curious about the new stuff and then hire people to kind of fill those spots as specialists.
Yeah.
Your other question, though, about remind me what the other question.
I was gonna, the question about how to improve the writing skills.
Skills. That's right. This is a trickier one for me because I am a writing snob. I think everyone can improve their writing and the way that they do, same as, their public speaking. And that's just by practicing, getting a lot of feedback, having people critique your work who you trust as strong writers or strong public speakers. But I actually think that that writing is a talent that's not unlike, being an artist or a musician. Not everybody is born with it, and not everybody is going to be a really exceptional writer, and that's okay. You'll have a different superpower. So figure out what that is for you. I do think that foundational writing skills are important, and you can hone those mostly by practicing, by reading, using, generative AI now gets you halfway there. But it's okay if you don't grow up to be an exceptional writer. You can still become a CMO or a very successful marketer.
No, that makes sense. Like one point that just like stuck with me is that point about superpowers, right?
Yeah.
I was watching an interview over the weekend where somebody said, I've hired 400 people over the last few years, and the one thing I look for is something unique, quirky about them. That's their like superpower, because that's what they truly bring to the company and sort of shine through.
Right. That's right. You want to stand out, especially when you're early in your career. Everybody has a superpower, and you can hone it so that it really becomes super. It might not be fully cultivated at the outset, but if you can zero in quickly on what it is that you're really good at. And by the way, I know lots of phenomenal marketers who are not great writers. They have other superpowers, and that's okay. So, but figure out what yours is and lean into that enough to give you momentum in your career, and then figure out, how you can go wider.
That makes sense. So there is one question, actually from a CMO who has asked this question. What have you written that you're proud of? Any I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've written a lot of stuff. It's tough to remember one thing that sort of is truly special.
So, one thing that I'm proud of. Well, that's an interesting question for me, because on my bucket list is one day, maybe when I'm retired, I would like to write a book. One thing I'm proud of is Mark Zuckerberg's sister wrote a book. I'm looking for it in my shelf here. So this book here by Randy Zuckerberg called Pick 3. It's an interesting story. I was working in a prior company before Ada, and fun fact, I was the CMO and my brother was the CEO. And it was my first time in a CMO role, and was looking to grow my network of mentors. And I thought, who would be a great mentor? And I thought Randy Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg's sister, was the CMO of Facebook for her brother. She would be a great mentor. So I put on my BDR hat and started chasing her to see if she would do any mentoring for me. And she agreed. And we had several mentoring sessions, and she was fabulous, by the way, very, very generous with her time and her support. And then at the time she was writing this book, so I didn't write it, but she wrote, there is a part of the book that is about me. So she wrote part of the book about me with my perspective in mind. So I can't take writing credit, but I am sort of proud that she included me in the book, and I was proud of that whole experience. I did not record the meetings. I see somebody is asking, but they definitely left an indelible impression. I was really grateful to have that access at that time.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, I actually didn't know that. I've heard of this name before, Randy Zuckerberg, but I didn't know that she was CMO of Facebook.
She was CMO at Facebook for several years, and it is a good book, particularly for women. It's all about how you actually cannot have it all. And at any point in your life, you should be prioritizing 3 things: family, friends, fitness, work, and sleep. Those being the 5 priorities. And her guidance is pick 3 of those at any given time.
What are your 3, Ruth, right now?
At the moment, I would say work. I would say family. And I'm trying to prioritize sleep because I don't get enough, and fitness and friends have both been neglected. Yeah, which is okay for now. The priorities change, or they're fluid, right?
Right. No, but I think fitness still has to be the three of sorts. So hopefully you can get back to that pretty soon. But Ruth, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time today. I know we're running out of time, and I don't want to keep you for too long. Any sort of advice to folks who are operating right now in this climate, especially through layoffs and stuff? I'm sure you're much experienced. You've gone through multiple cycles, right? So what's your final sort of...
Yeah, I think, operating lean, having a really strong sense of focus. Marketing is one of those functions that can easily get pulled in a million different directions. And the more that you can really focus on what matters most, versus, peanut buttering your marketing approach across too many areas of priority, really thinking about the interests of your existing customers, because I do believe right now, customer retention, customer expansion, it's a lot more efficient to expand an existing customer than it is to acquire a new one. That would be my guidance. And also recognize that in the hardest times, the most challenging times, that's when the greatest opportunities present. And I believe that as a marketer and as a human. So don't be scared to take a big swing.
Awesome, Ruth. No, that's well said. Ruth, really appreciate your time today. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I think folks can connect with you on LinkedIn if they want to, and sort of keep learning what you're up to. But thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Of course, Ruth. See you guys. See you in the next couple of weeks. Take care.